today. Lindsey Weber, a St. Louis native and 2008 graduate of Stevens College. Lindsey has worked for the St. Louis Cardinals Major League Baseball team since 2012. In her current role, Lindsey serves as the Community Relations Manager, where she works in tandem with the team's charitable foundation, Cardinals Care, to give back to the community. Whether it's granting wishes for critically ill children, uh, let's see, sorry, I'm admitting people as well. Hi. Distributing complimentary tickets to area nonprofits, championing inclusivity at the ballpark, or fundraising for crucial causes. Lindsey strives to support the community with the same enthusiasm as a sold-out Busch Stadium. Lindsey is also the Cardinals family liaison, working directly with spouses and families of the players and coaches to foster camaraderie, administer hospitality, and support their charitable efforts. Lindsey began her Cardinals career in communications, writing press releases, providing strategic public relations counsel, providing video content for web and television, and overseeing the day-to-day operations of the team's social media platforms. In 2016, Lindsey was instrumental in launching the Mid-America Emmy-nominated Cardinals Insider TV show. She wrote and produced and hosted over 30 episodes of the regionally distributed weekly news magazine show during its inaugural season. And while earning her degree in mass media broadcasting from Stevens, Lindsey received the 2007 Student Leadership Award, voted on by the student body in 2008, and was named Intelligence as part of the prestigious tradition of the 10 Ideals. Lindsey is a storyteller, a collaborator, creator, unifier, and a fan of problem solving. She lives by the motto, make it make sense. Welcome, Lindsey.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we are excited to have you. And you've got such a cool, you do so many cool things. And that is the very intellectual academic way of saying that. Um, and so speaking of intellect and academics, I would love to hear you talk about how your background here at Stevens or your studies at Stevens sort of provided that foundation for all of the cool stuff that you do now. You originally came here to study theater, but you moved into mass media and broadcasting before classes even started. So I'm wondering what moments or decisions helped you recognize that storytelling could be the connecting thread for your time at Stevens, but also for your professional roles after
Mhm.
graduation.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, if you would have told me when I was a child that I was going to end up working for a professional sports team, I probably would have laughed at you a lot. Like, I did play softball as a kid, but I was so bad that they would make me be the catcher and I'd have to walk the ball back out to the mound because, like, I couldn't throw it with all the gear on. So it is a little peculiar that this is where I ended up, but I feel like every step I took at Stevens sort of naturally led me here. I did choose it for theater. And before I even started taking classes, I was like, oh no, this doesn't sound practical enough. Like, the back part of my brain was like, you have to do something more practical. I would have been fine doing theater, it would have been fine. Um, but I did. I went the communications route. I was always somebody that was very comfortable speaking. Like I would volunteer to read in class when I was a kid. It was like just those things were like very naturally in me. And honestly, we did this thing at Stevens, and I don't know if you guys still do it. We had Song Fest during freshman orientation. And it was sort of this like little talent show that we did with all the other students, and they just put us in random groups. And I was still like feeling a bit nervous that I had maybe made the mistake by not going the theater route. And in my little group, we did our little skit, and I was like hosting a game show as part of it. And for like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like for weeks after this Song Fest event, people kept coming up to me and they were like, you were the person that like hosted that TV show at Song Fest. Like that was so cool. And like it was in that moment, just something as silly and simple as that, where I really felt like, okay, maybe I am on the right path. Like speaking is something that I feel comfortable doing. And sure, I can tell a fake story, but I can also tell a real story. And so I just kept pursuing that. And thankfully, Stevens had a lot of opportunities, whether I was able to get involved with like our improv comedy club. I could still sort of like dabble in theater throughout. Uh, but yeah, all those doors were still open, and it was very clear early on that talking one way or another, telling stories or being stories was going to be part of who I am.
That's great. Yeah, one can, as the kids say, yap for a living. And I think it's important that everybody know that. Um, I heard you say that you were concerned about theater not being a
Mhm,
practical degree. And I think that that is a concern that students often arrive with, right? That the thing that they are most passionate about might not make for the most practical pathway into a career. Um, so looking back, how did your involvement in things that were passion pursuits, like the times when you were able to dabble in theater adjacent activities,
mhm,
like the improv club? Do we still
mhm.
have that? Is there? I feel like there needs to be an improv club. I can think of several people who we should nominate um, to found it, but so yeah, like you pursued student government, you did improv, you did
Mhm,
communications. And so, how did finding your way towards
mhm.
those passion pursuits, even if they weren't necessarily your degree program, help participate in that foundation
Yeah.
building for what you have now?
Yeah, at first I do feel like it's important to say, um, I feel like my belief that like theater wasn't a good enough degree was like absolutely misplaced. I definitely had a very supportive family base and school base, and I think people sort of encouraged dreams, or I should say, people were like, "Yeah, okay," but nobody like pushed and said, "You can do it." And I think if I had had somebody or found people in my corner that really challenged me to go for it, I could have been better off or just as good as I am now. So I think part of that is finding the right people to help advocate for you. Um, because ultimately, just having the degree opens a lot of doors. I'm still not technically doing what my degree says on that piece of paper, so it doesn't always matter. But yeah, being engaged, I was very involved in sort of extracurricular activities at Stevens. And I use those skills like an alarming amount of times, more than I necessarily lean on, maybe something I read in a textbook, although textbooks are great and very important too. But I've been talking a lot about lately. I keep thinking back to that improv club. There's a mantra in improv comedy. You say yes and. So when like somebody throws a suggestion at you, you say yes and then you build on it because it's not fun watching people interact when somebody's like, no, actually, I'm not in a castle. I'm at a farm. And you're like, okay, well, like now we're not moving forward. So yes anding is something that like I've really held on to that concept. I tend to be like it's hard for me to make decisions. And I think I'm a very good decision maker, but I overthink everything. I like to have it all on the table. I like to think about it so much before I can really commit to something. So sometimes just relying back on that yes and philosophy of like, yes, what you said is a good idea, and let me just build on it because it doesn't have to be perfect every time to get to that decision. So that's like a philosophy that sticks around with me a lot. And surprisingly, my res life training, wow, holds up to this day. I tap into it all the time. What I do in my current role with the Cardinals at family as the family liaison, I'm basically their resident director in so many ways. Like I have this group of incredible women who come from different places across the country. A lot of them are different ages and different backgrounds, different political beliefs and social beliefs, and just all of these different things. And I kind of have to like mediate for them. And boy, do I lean back on my res life training a lot. There was like one particular conversation where we talked about setting expectations and how like one person's idea of a clean room might be very different than another person's idea of a clean room. And I'm telling you, like, if I don't think about that at least like once a week, just coming in handy about just making sure that I'm really clear in setting expectations for people. So I feel like those are a couple ways that like just tapping into those extracurricular activities maybe they didn't need, I'm not doing improv comedy for a living, but like I still build on those skills every day.
Yes, and yes, and fear not, the conversations about what counts as a clean room persist as evidenced by some complaints that I overheard in class this
Yeah,
morning.
didn't say we solved any of it, but
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
open
it's
communication is good.
absolutely, it's the eternal issue, right? The people having different expectations and people not articulating what those are, and so naturally they aren't in alignment.
Mhm.
When it's roommate based, I call those dishes. Um, just having some dishes. Um, so you were talking about working with people, you are essentially the res life coordinator for
Mhm.
the families that you work with for the Cardinals Care Foundation. Um, and so, like you said, that requires building so much trust. Amongst people who are coming from really different places, whether that's from different backgrounds, different cultures, different life stages. So, in addition to open communication, what are some of the leadership skills that you think are most critical in creating a sense of community out of what could turn into just disparate parts?
Mhm. Yeah, I think we said at the introduction, I started my role here at the Cardinals in communications. And so I eventually evolved into this role and inherited the role of family liaison. And I was like a little nervous at first. I'm like, what am I getting myself into? I feel like Real Housewives is very popular. And I'm like, is this what I'm walking into? I was so pleasantly surprised in meeting all of the player and coach spouses, and that these women are incredible. They to live the baseball lifestyle, to have to sort of like uproot your home and travel from city to city multiple times a year. If you want to exist together as a family, you have to do these things. And certainly once you get to a certain level, there is a level of income that helps make some of those things easier, but it's not an easy job. So to me, the easiest thing I can do is just be a friendly and familiar face to them, and that comes down to just being authentic and genuine and who I am. Like I I don't necessarily always have things in common with them, but I'm going to find things in common, and I'm just going to try to be kind, and again, sort of say yes to everything that I can, try to help as much as I possibly can. And sometimes I'm going to have to say no, I don't have a solution for that, or no, we can't, it's not in my budget to have that event, or something along those lines. But I just always try to be um as genuine as I possibly can, and then, because we're all just human at the end of the day, and it's such an uncomfortable situation. Sometimes these families might literally get a phone call in the middle of the night, and it's like, you're going to go to St. Louis tomorrow, and you just have to like pick up your family and get there. And so like just knowing that people are always coming from a place of like chaos, trying to be that grounding force for them at least.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it is also nice to hear that um, Real Housewives is just a show.
Yes.
And
Yeah, just TV.
but it's real is in the name, but it is fake. Not, Miranda could actually speak to that better than I could. Um, but speaking of, I heard you say that you are trying to say yes as much as you can. And I
Mhm.
feel like I heard the improv echo in there again.
Mhm.
And it made me think about how much improv and also theater, like, having that theater interest and background, like these are all such collaborative activities, collaborative skill sets, things that truly could not happen without
Yeah.
many people working towards a common goal. And so, you've mentioned that such collaboration is essential to your work, and I'd love to hear you share a moment when collaboration, maybe across teams or across organizations, led to an outcome that was really impactful for a family or a community. Before the interview started, I was really interested to hear that you have like counterparts in other teams, which I only know baseball through the lens of um, rivalries. So it's interesting for me to hear about that. But yeah, I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, I think people are always surprised to learn. One, they're like, well, what do you do during the off season? And I'm like, well, it's not an off season for us. The team's not playing, but we're now trying to get everything ready for the next year. And then two, they're always surprised to learn that we actually get along really well with our counterparts at other teams and quite frankly, like really rely on each other because nobody else has a similar experience. It's such a unique role and job. So to be able to rely on other people and say, like, I know you guys have figured it out. Tell me what you're doing and how we can do it better. So we definitely work together very collaboratively there. Um, Boy, does my office hate to see me come in because they know I'm coming to try to collaborate. I just like collaboration is my favorite thing because I believe that everyone is an expert in their own thing and you're going to be able to do it best. So, like, if I have an idea about something, I'm not the expert. Like, I'm going to come to you on it. So we do try to collaborate a lot. Baseball tends to be a lot of people working in silos, or at least it has been here for many, many years because it's such a large scale operation to be able to pull it together, to pull a game together. Like sometimes I don't even know how a game happens, but we're all just responsible for such little pieces of it, and together it makes the big puzzle picture come together. So collaboration is really important. Um, Stories. There's a couple, maybe two stories that come to mind very quickly that are just two of my favorite examples of being able to collaborate. One was a couple of years ago. So as part of my role as the community relations manager, we get a lot of requests, emails, phone calls from fans. Everybody has a really incredible story, and it's trying to be able to filter out how we can say yes again, try to accommodate and support them and give back to us the same way that they support us. Um, I received an email from a man who he hit sensitive subject matter here, sort of a fair warning. His 13-year-old nephew died by suicide after persistent bullying at his school. And the little boy was uh, a big time Cardinals fan and like thought he was going to play on the Cardinals when he grew up. So I don't have kids, but I am an aunt and I love my nephews who just so happen to be the same age as this little boy. And it just broke my heart to read the story. And so we made the decision to bring the family to a game, and we made a custom jersey with the child's last name and his favorite number on there, and did a big pregame ceremony before the game, recognizing him and sort of paying tribute to his story. But as part of that, he was also a Yankees fan, and the Yankees were in town, so we collaborated. We reached out to the Yankees and we said, would you guys kind of be interested in supporting us? And if I tell you, like, no, there was not a dry eye. It was a beautiful moment. Both the teams, the Cardinals and the Yankees, 3 minutes before competing against each other, came out on the field and lined behind home plate and stood with their arms around each other and around that family and embraced them. And just it didn't matter about the outcome of the game. It's so much bigger than baseball to just be able to give your support to a family and in a really incredible time of need. And that wouldn't have come together without collaboration. And so I love being able to do things like that. We had last year, quickly, we had a player, Joel Pozo, his son had a pediatric stroke when he was little. And Joel wanted to put together for Players Weekend a custom bat to raise awareness for his son's condition. So I was able to reach out to our corporate partner, Mercy Hospital, and we took Pozo's family to the hospital where little kids put their handprints all over the bat. And so all kids that had a similar condition as his son, to raise awareness for the cause. And then during Players Weekend, in his last at bat, he hits a home run with this baseball bat decorated with all these kids' handprints. And I like lost my mind. It was just such a beautiful moment. We worked so closely with our corporate sales department, with the media. I reached out, did a lot of pitching to tell that story so that we got the awareness that he was looking for, and the bat maker that was involved. It was just such a cool moment. And like working in baseball, really long days, really hard. It's exhausting and I'm so sweaty. all the time. But like it is moments like that that make it worth everything to me.
That's really beautiful. Um, and such a powerful story. Um, and so, you're when you host a child for a wish granting experience, there is this focus on honoring their story. And it seems like you're such a great custodian of those stories. And that's because you recognize that there is a responsibility in honoring them. Like telling someone else's story is um, a huge ethical consideration, a huge responsibility. And so, in moments like that, like the stories you just shared with us, what have these kinds of moments taught you about the responsibility of honoring such stories and the power that can come out of doing it well?
Yeah, I think very important skill of being a good communicator and storyteller is like knowing when to stop talking and just to listen, and to truly hear what people are looking for and to honor their experiences. Sometimes the best stories I've seen are ones that have never been told. And that is okay because it's not about me. It's not about anybody else. It's about that family and their experience in the moment. So I do put a lot of time and energy into trying to hear, if they're looking to make this a public moment, and then if they are, if they're okay with it, they're open to it because it helps raise awareness for their cause or the situation. Um, I'll work really hard to get like our social media team involved or our video crew or our TV broadcast partners to try to tell that story. And then, like I said, other times it's just about saying, oh, this family just needs this for themselves. At the moment after we did the big ceremony with the sweet boy, his family, with the Yankees and the Cardinals. And that was they were every step of the way, they were very involved in that storytelling process. When we got back into the room, sort of like the holding room, they all just needed a moment. That was a lot. There was closure there. There was just raw emotion. And I just sat back in the corner and just waited, and sometimes that is part of the job, is just like you are working with like people's real emotions and just trying to like create a safe space for them to feel those things.
Right. So much of it sounds like it's also, you're talking about how um, one of the ways um, that you're showing up to these moments is just by trying to be as authentic as possible, trying to be as much yourself as possible. And I think that goes a long way towards essentially like just interpersonal skills, managing relationships, and really building relationships so that, when these folks are working with you, it feels less like a transaction and more like,
Mhm.
something as genuine as you hope to be. And so, do you have any, thoughts or tips for college students who are looking to develop those relationship building skills, collaboration skills while they're still here at Stevens?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of it is just like empathy, and trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. That's just something. I don't know if that comes with being a female, if it comes with like that was a gift from Stevens from having that female led education, or if that's just kind of who I am. But just always trying to like take myself out of it and be like, what? How would I feel if this was me in that situation right now? And trying to look at it from that angle. Uh, and then I do feel like just the more you can do to educate yourself about stories that are different than yours, getting involved with people, with organizations, with clubs, that maybe we don't necessarily align with or like have a natural interest in, but just like taking an interest in things and looking at things from a different perspective. I feel like the more I've interacted with people, that have a different experience than me, I'm always like, wow, I never thought of that. And it's always like a very good moment. So I just feel like surrounding yourself with people that just have maybe different backgrounds than you, it certainly goes a long way.
That certainly sings straight to my poet heart. Um, we were just having a conversation in class today about how um, certain brands of popular poetry, mostly found on social media, is, people like it because they can relate to it, they can connect to it, but really what they're connecting to is this very generalized experience that's not specific to anybody. And so they, you can kind of project yourself into it. It doesn't have any, meaning that's specific to a given person. And I was very heartened to hear all of my students say, you don't have to have had an experience in order for it to be meaningful to you. You can hear someone else's story, you can appreciate someone else's words without being able to directly relate to them. So I, it's heartening to hear that. And so you also mentioned the that perhaps it has something to do with having, been a woman, with having gone to a women's college. And so could you speak a little bit more to, the fact of having attended this women's college? How did it shape your leadership style? How did it shape your ability to navigate and succeed in professional sports?
Yeah. Again, I never like specifically sought out Stevens for the women's education, but I'm so glad that it kind of fell into my lap because once I got to the Cardinals, uh, it never occurred to me that I didn't belong here. Especially in my very first role, working on the business public relations side, I was oftentimes, and social media, I was oftentimes in the locker room, in the clubhouse. Uh, and it never occurred to me that like I shouldn't be there. Cause like now on this side, they're like, you can't go in there. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen it all. Like I've done it all. Like I've already done that job. But there are a lot of parameters, and I feel like maybe it is just something that comes with youth. But I do feel like I got it from Stevens. It was having just the confidence to be yourself and do the things that maybe you wouldn't normally get to do. I took so many film classes as part of my degree. And I just think like how many times I was the person behind the camera, or I was the person doing the audio, or like lugging around the heavy equipment that like I don't know if there were men in the setting, would I have just like instinctive, not even like thinking about it, would I just let them take those spots because that's what I've been conditioned to see and experience in life. And so again, I didn't know what I didn't know. I had to do those things. And so, you know, flash forward to 2016 when we've launched the Cardinals Insider TV show. And I'm basically like a one man crew, like lugging around the equipment, again, sweating, because like in my next life, I'm going to work somewhere where there's air conditioning all the time because it's so hot here. Carrying all the equipment and doing the interviews. And again, I didn't know that like this wasn't necessarily something that I should do, but it just gave me the confidence. Like youth, you just have a little bit of like false sense of confidence, because you haven't been like shut down before. So I do feel like a little bit of that comes from Stevens though, and just having that confidence to show up. And it's been very nice. I recently joined the board of trustees, and I mean, we're all human, right? Like the further away I get from my tenure being there, the more you kind of like slip back into those old habits of being like, well, oh, I'm not part of that meeting, like should I speak up? But being able to come back to Stevens as a board member and be in a room full of like really kick butt ladies, you're like, oh yeah, I like that's just exactly what I needed to like refresh my energy and get out there and do what I feel like I do best.
Heck yeah. You said a couple sentences ago, having been instilled with a false sense of confidence, but I would argue that it's actually just that you came to a place where your confidence was not destroyed. Um,
Yes.
like
Like
you're in,
pure.
yes, like your innate self-worth was not compromised by
Hmm.
the existence of, say, like the shadowy boys club, right?
Hmm.
Like Stevens is also small, so you kind of can be part of anything you want to be part of here.
Right.
You can
Right.
start whatever you want to start here. There is, I think I agree that that's a special thing. And I had never thought before about how that might then it makes sense we have so many alums who are leaders because they go into these
Mhm.
spaces having never been told that they shouldn't be there. And that is
Yeah.
truly, truly special. Um, yes. So you know, we're thinking about cohesion and about your ability to kind of show up to a room and feel like you belong there. You've talked also about sports itself, themselves.
Either
English
one. Yeah, you're the English one.
You've described sports as being a great unifier, and also the Cardinals, as a connecting thread for the city of St. Louis. Um, and so, you're representing an organization that holds a lot of emotional significance for a community, even if you are somebody who doesn't participate in the team rivalry. Like there's just people have so many feelings about their teams. Um, so why do you think it is that sports are this like great unifier? And um, to what extent do you feel a sense of responsibility in representing that
Yeah.
great piece?
I I think I once heard a quote, and I mean, or read something on social media that was a headline and then didn't read the article. But I think I read before that like the majority of friendships are actually built around a common dislike or like a common enemy as opposed to what brings you together. So I've always thought about that, especially as it relates to sports. Because I mean, truly, you come into Busch Stadium on a Saturday and there's 45,000 people in the ballpark, and the person next to you maybe is from a different place, and the person in front of you maybe is a different race, and person over here is different gender, but like you all can agree on one thing, and that is that we hate the other team, or that you're really rooting for us to win. And so like there is at least this one common denominator in every single person in this ballpark. And it's a beautiful thing to see, a celebration. You see people every high fiving um, and sort of breaking boundaries in that way. And so, yeah, I do think that sports can be a really important unifier. And I do feel like there's a lot of pressure. Um, People look to the Cardinals as St. Louis. Like, there's the Arch and there's Cardinals baseball. And I think that there's a lot of responsibility to uh, do and act responsibly in our community and for the people that cheer us on and our neighbors. And um, yeah, I try to ask why a lot to make sure that we're doing things with true intent and reason, and we're not just doing things to check a box or slap our name on it and say, oh, the Cardinals did a hospital visit today. Is the hospital visit going to genuinely make a difference for somebody? Then yes, let's do it. And try to make sure that we're making lasting change, because we want people in our city and we want people to come down to the ballpark and feel safe and feel like they are welcome, not just welcome, that they are invited and they are wanted here. So there is a great responsibility with that power. And I think we're all just trying to do a good job with it. I don't know if, whether we succeed or not is a different story, but we're trying.
Sounds like you're doing a great job to me. And in some of your response, I can hear that motto of yours, make it make sense.
Mhm.
Will it truly be worthwhile? Will it actually make a difference, or is this for PR? And so,
Mhm.
um, could you talk a little bit more about that philosophy and how it guides your decision making, particularly in what might be complex situations, emotionally charged
Mhm.
situations, given the nature of your work?
Yeah, I can be a little bit of a squeaky wheel. Some people really like that, and others don't. But no, I am a little bit of that little kid in the backseat of the car being like, why? Well, why? Because I think just in business in general, certainly in baseball, anytime that you've had success, you just try to replicate it. And there's a natural instinct to just do things because that's how we did it last year. It's very cyclical, like opening day comes around the same time every year. We're always looking back to the event we did last year and how do we just do it again. And I always approach it from a place. I'm never trying to uh, disqualify anybody or it's never coming from a negative place. It's coming from a place of love. But to ask why, well, but why are we doing this? Like, does it make sense? Are we just doing it because that's what we did last year, or does it truly help us achieve our goals? I like to have a goal post. Again, maybe it's a sports thing. I like to know which direction I'm running or like where I'm trying to hit the ball. And so that is something that I'm always looking at and asking questions. Never, again, never in a challenging way, trying to be thoughtful. And because we're also like in a very weather related environment, there has to be like a rain plan and then like a backup plan for the rain plan. And then even after that, something's probably going to happen that's you're just going to have to be very flexible and pivot anyway. So always try to make things make sense so that we eliminate any issues along the way. I also feel like the other side of that philosophy is sometimes a situation might happen and you're like, can't quite figure out why. And it's probably because you're missing a piece of the story, right? Like there's always more to the story. Well, why was that decision made? Or what that doesn't make sense. Well, it's because you're not seeing the other side of the same coin or whatever. So trying to seek out all perspectives on the story because I'm a big and thinker. It is not black or white. It can be black and white. Things can be this and that. Both things can be true. So it's really important for me, again, as thinking about things like as a storyteller, there's always another side to the story, and it doesn't make one right and it doesn't make one wrong. Both of them can be true. And I think that certainly plays into that make it make sense mentality. There is a way to get to like, it's also just like, I like cannot function if I can't make sense of things. Like it'll drive me nuts. So it's a little bit just a character flaw, maybe, but just acknowledging that there can be multiple sides to the same story, and it plays into that philosophy.
I mean, we're pattern seeking animals. I think that that makes
Yeah.
sense to me. And it seems like in the way you talk about the the ands and the whys
Mm.
and the always wanting to know the context and wanting to know more of the story, it feels like you have a general just talent for awareness and observation
Mm.
and curiosity, which are so crucial. And you met your future employer through an unexpected opportunity with the American Red Cross. And so I'm imagining that, you were the perfect person to take advantage of that because you are so alert to and attuned to what might be sort of underneath something, behind something, what an opportunity might be when you might not necessarily see it as such. So have chance encounters and relationships shaped your professional journey? And what advice would you give to students about recognizing those moments? Because it is a skill, recognizing and being aware of things that could work out for you, even if they're not necessarily what you planned.
Hmm. Yeah. So after I graduated from Stevens, we joked before this started. The economy was in a rough spot. So like I thought I was going to maybe move to New York or LA and work in film and television, but instead I just like moved back into my parents' house and took a paid internship with the American Red Cross. But right then and there, I sort of got on the path to where it takes me today. I always joke that it was a tornado that brought me to the Cardinals because there was a tornado in St. Louis, and the Cardinals made a financial donation to the American Red Cross. Perhaps it was because it was Easter Sunday and nobody else wanted to do it, or because everybody knew that I was like, I very much enjoyed baseball. I was a big baseball fan. They said, Lindsey, why don't you go down to the stadium and you be the person that like does the check presentation and collects that moment? And it was that day that I met the person that would eventually hire me at the Cardinals. And I didn't, I just followed him around the whole day. And he said, I stay and watch the whole game if you want to sit with me. And I said, great, I'd love to. And I just kept asking questions. I just wanted to learn. It blew my mind the way that sports operated. I was like, so what are you're telling me there's like, you're in this department, but there's another department that does that? I just like I had no concept of how like sports jobs were structured. And in fact that it like runs like a little city. We have our own carpenters here and like basically anything you can think of, like we have it here on staff. And so, yeah, I just followed him around. And then I just very politely kept pestering him for like a year of my life. And just saying, like, I would just love an informational interview. I'm not asking for a job. I enjoyed what I did at the Red Cross, but there were also some changes, and I had a feeling it was going to be going in a different direction. And it for whatever reason it just never worked out, schedule conflicts, but he was willing, and so I just kept politely asking. And then sure enough a job came open and he said, hey, I remember that we met, and if you wanted to apply, 2,000 people applied, and where do you start? You start with a name that you know. And I certainly had to have the credentials and the skills to back it up and to earn the job, but he just needed a starting place. And so it was that year of patience and persistence that kind of led to it. And I feel like I've had a lot of moments over my life that way. Always kind of joke, like if you've ever seen the movie or read the book Slumdog Millionaire, about the kid in India who there is going to be a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he all of the questions are conveniently just like experiences and snapshots from his life that he like there's no other reason he would know these answers other than like just this weird thing that happened to him. And that's like it kind of feels like that's how my life has gone. Another thing I did after I graduated from Stevens, I took an unpaid gig working on a documentary about children in a circus. I was like, okay, and met some of the best friends that I will have for the rest of my life. And also now as working at the Cardinals, the kids circus group is a nonprofit that we support, and we still cross paths to this day, and I'm still finding ways to elevate and tell their story and partner with them. I'm in charge now of the American Red Cross blood drive here at the Cardinals. It's just things like all it was like everything that I took on my little path eventually led me to where I was meant to be. And I think for students to just be aware of opportunities and maybe something, I mean, like, don't say yes to anything that like puts you in a weird spot, or like don't let people take advantage of your kindness. And just like because I took a lot of things that were unpaid, but just like feeling out and being open just to like it kind of feels like it could be an adventure. Like, let's see where it leads. And always tie up those experiences with a nice bow, because you never know when you're going to go back to them or they're going to return to you on a silver platter to unwrap and revisit again.
Yeah, I hear in the story with the Reds, was it the manager or the you sort of followed him around and
Oh, yeah, here at the Cardinals. Yeah, who's
oh, Cardinals. Sorry, we were talking
no,
about
it's
the
okay.
Reds
We were
before,
talking.
and Cardinals are red. That's
Yeah,
how that happened.
yeah,
Um,
it was their vice, like the well, I think he was the director of public relations at the time. Yeah.
okay. Right. And so, yeah, just and it sounds like you were just very curious about like maintaining that curiosity and demonstrating that interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of times people might not know that you are even interested.
Right.
Um,
And
yeah,
I really feel for him, because now being on the other side, I do get a lot of like LinkedIn messages or emails, and there's just more than I can keep up with. And I don't know why he was so kind to still keep entertaining my I was like a paced approach. I didn't like harass him. But yeah, and that's why I do anytime that somebody reaches out, I always try, especially in opportunities like this, try to find ways, if even if it's like one little nugget that I can give back, because I feel really grateful for that opportunity that I got.
right. So we're not going through anyone's trash,
Nope.
but and it also, I mean, to my mind, like you were there, like he spent
Yeah.
time with you,
Mhm.
right? And I think that those are, I agree that those are like some of the most impactful opportunities. We did have a question in the chat
Oh,
from
yes, please.
Lillian wants to know the skills that are necessary for success in a job like yours.
Yeah. Flexibility is a really key one. I kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, but I think we have to be incredibly detail oriented and always have a plan, but never, ever, ever will your plan work. You have to be ready to sort of adapt. and be creative in your problem solving, um, to come up with the new plan. And there was we host this event every year called Family Day for the players and their families, and our coaching staff and their families after a game. And the forecast, I mean, there was like rain in the forecast, but it looked pretty decent. And our grounds crew is like, we trust them. They are the official source. And so I said, what do you think? Do we have the green light to continue with the event after the game? We can do it on the field. And they said, yeah, you can do it. Yes. Okay, great. So I didn't have to use my backup plan, which was like something that no one would want to have to do, like up under the concourse. So we set everything up on the field, and then immediately, 30 seconds later, there was an absolute downpour. And when I say downpour, I mean, at one point I was standing in like a river, and hot dogs and nachos were floating by because the drain got clogged.
Oh
And
God.
and all of my work and like my budget and like everything that I put into this and all my people are just all standing out getting covered in rain. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I just needed a moment to like stay calm, collect myself. And then I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. And it was like nothing I had thought of before, but you just have to be super creative and be willing to problem solve. And I mean, I looked like a wet dog. The beautiful wives somehow were like, it's like a little raindrop here, there. No, I was fully drenched, like my mascara dripping down my face. I had to take off my shoes and walk barefoot through the ballpark because there was so much water. My shoes just kept falling off. And it was so disturbing. And all I could kept hearing were people coming up to me and saying, thank you. This was the most memorable family day we have ever had. And we know it was really challenging for you and your staff, but thank you for problem solving and like making us or still giving us the experience. So staying flexible, being creative, and being willing to solve problems are three of my tips.
At first, a river of nachos and hot dogs sounded like the best possible kind of river, and then I realized they were trash nachos.
Yep. So once a bite's taken out of them, just
Yeah.
touching my ankles. Not
Not,
good. Not
not a
good. We have
fantasy.
very high highs here and very low lows.
Um, we have another question in the chat from Lindsay. I'm sure that you receive an overwhelming amount of requests for donations or other items. How do you narrow it down to the one that might be the most beneficial or meaningful?
Yeah, this sort of goes back to my yes and policy, except it's no but. Um, there is always a yes in everything that everybody sends to us. I mean, truly, we receive thousands of emails a year requesting items, experiences, and everybody tells me that they are the biggest Cardinals fan. And I do believe them, except that everybody else has also said the same thing. So yeah, it's having systems in place that there's a yes in it for everybody. No, I can't let you spread your ashes on the field at Busch Stadium. I don't know why people want to do this for family members. That's come up a few times this week. And I'm like, no, but here's what I can do for you instead. I'd be glad to write a special letter to you on behalf of the team, acknowledging how much we appreciate your support of the loved one, or whatever it is. There's always finding a solution in it. And then I do think it is sort of having a keen eye when to elevate something. A lot of those requests just go into an easy bucket. That's a donation request. That's a fan pack request. That's a special letter request. Great, check it off. But sometimes there are ones, and it's just paying attention and feel. It's like I try to teach people how to do it, but I'm like, you just have to feel it. Like um, having great communication skills and writing a very well worded email goes a long way. If I can see how this experience feels slightly different, or there is sort of an interesting element to it that maybe we haven't told a story like that before, to be able to elevate and say, yeah, we're going to execute this experience on a bigger level. And it is, again, listening. Maybe it's because it seems like they would be open to storytelling and being a part of the broadcast, because this is a very public environment. Anytime we do things here, people are going to see it. So we just have to um, just kind of filter out and just look for things that have a little extra sparkle to them. That's how you know to elevate it. But there's a yes in there for everybody.
Um, so when you reflect on your career, including your time as a student leader, to now community relations manager, what is the impact that you're most proud of, and what legacy do you hope to continue building in the community?
Yeah. I think I do think about this a lot, and I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome, even when you were, Miranda, reading the bio, which I, helped write. I'm like, who is this person? She sounds so neat. Like it doesn't feel like me. It doesn't feel like this is my life when you put it on paper, because of course it is, it has a little bit of that social media effect. Like, of course, I'm only going to tell you about the good parts. I'm not going to tell you about my failures in my bio, but there are like definitely failures, and I'm okay being remembered by those too, because it's like how you get up from those moments and what you learn from it. I have spent my entire life being a perfectionist, and trust me, many people tried to stop me along the way, but I didn't listen because that was the perfect response. Being okay with failure, like I want somebody to encourage that and let me know that that's okay. And again, yeah, just trying to be able to, how do you pivot from it? That's something I'm proud of, is how did I make a bad moment into a good one? Um, and then ultimately, I the thing that like allows me to lay my head down at night and go to sleep, it's just the way that like the relationships that I have with people around the ballpark. There are, I mean, there's a couple hundred people that work in our front office, but beyond that, there are hundreds and hundreds of individuals, from the hot dog sellers to the people that work down in our loading dock, and the literally going through every piece of trash in the ballpark and deciding whether that's going to go to recycling, or is that going to be composted or landfill. I just i approach my life with, I try to be kind, and just I think about the thing that I'm most proud of is just the way that I interact with people in the ballpark, and trying to know people by their names, um and just living as authentically as I can. And that like it's not splashy. Like I've had cool moments here. I got to be in the clubhouse in and on the field when the Cardinals were going to the World Series in 2013. I was shooting social media, and I was wearing a rain jacket, and champagne and confetti came out of my pockets. That was pretty cool. Those are neat moments, but like for me, it's just knowing that like when I walk into a room, people are like glad that I'm there, and or glad that I'm helping with the situation. Just that's the thing I'm proud of, is being able to just be kind to people, treat people with kindness, and um I'm good enough with that. That makes me happy enough.
Um, Another question in the chat from Kelly. Lindsey, what made you say yes to today's conversation? Is this your jam or something you do because it's important?
Sneaky, sneaky question, Kelly. It's a little bit of both, I think. I have a hard time saying no. I'm like, yes, somebody needs me. Yes, I'll help. I'll always help. But I do like, I really very much enjoy being able to like give back. And again, this like goes back to the imposter syndrome. I'm like sweating so much because it makes me so uncomfortable thinking that like anybody is like learning anything of significance from me, because I'm just like, I'm just a human. Like I'm just out here faking it and doing my best, just like all of us. But like there is the thought, like if I am able to help somebody, that's so important to me, and I love to be able to give back in that way. And I mean, like I don't like to talk about things that I don't know about, and like talking about myself is something I feel pretty, pretty comfortable on the subject matter, so I'm okay to say yes to these sorts of things.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered?
No, maybe, I mean, unless there's any other questions, maybe I will just leave you all with one funny little story. So at Stevens, I think it was my junior year, 2006, the Cardinals were in the World Series. And I was in a documentary film class, and I had to make a documentary, but I was like really not focused on my documentary because the Cardinals were going to the World Series and I was a diehard baseball fan. So I stopped everything that I was doing, and I was like, that's it. My documentary is going to be about the Cardinals now. And I drove home and I shot this like very terrible little short film. And there's this like very sad shot of me just like standing outside the ballpark gates, not being able to get in because like I couldn't get tickets. I'm not sure that I like really tried to get tickets because they were just out of my budget at the time. And I think about that a lot because I made it on the inside and don't tell our legal department that I made that film. I'm claiming fair use because I think maybe now that I know more than I did back then, I think maybe they wouldn't have liked that idea. But it sort of came full circle to me. We do this event every year with the team. We do a Cardinals caravan and we take players out on a bus to different cities in neighboring communities, and they sign autographs for fans every winter. And the one year I got to go to Columbia with some of the players in the bus, and we drove past the Stevens campus and they were like, so wait, that's like where you went to school? And I was like, yeah, this is like where I went. Like we're like playing cards and I'm telling them all about it. And I'm like, if this like I keep picturing that little shot of me standing outside the stadium like trying to get in, and I'm like, she made it, she did it, she did okay. um so I feel like I hope everybody gets to have a fun little moment like that at some point in their careers.
Thank you so much. This has been really enlightening and wonderful. Um, are there any final questions for Lindsey before we depart?
Lindsey, thank you so much for doing this. This has been really great. And what a really great story to end on as well.
Yeah.
So I am picturing you as a student standing outside those gates, and
Yeah.
that's kind of fun. Um, okay, well, thanks again for everyone who is attending, and this will be up on our website shortly. So have a great and wonderful Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.